Welcome back to a new installment of the Wide Right Podcast. Manny Navarro, Miami Hurricanes college football writer for The Athletic, joined by Carlos Ledo of the MIA All Day Pod. Carlos, it's Wednesday, August 7th at 7:30. Fans are very happy to see you again because it's been a while since you and I have done a show. Last
That's
week,
debatable.
last week I had to have Adam Lichtenstein from the South Florida Sun Sentinel on as a pinch hitter because the start of camp and the whole thing, media day. I wanted to make sure we got the podcast rolling again. But you're back in your familiar spot, and
Yeah,
we
man.
got we got to start the show with some very important news, Carlos.
Oh God, where are we going here?
We finally know what Miami lost when FIU beat them on November 23rd, 2019. It was
Yes.
Pitbull. Mr.
Pitbull's respect.
305. Mr. 305 decided to associate himself with FIU's Golden Panthers, not the Hurricanes. Carlos, who do we turn to for an anthem for the Miami Hurricanes?
Listen, first of all, I was also preparing for camp by being in Disney World and completely forgetting that camp started. But listen, man, I don't know who you turn to at this point. Do you make it now Trick Daddy Field at Hard Rock Stadium? Do you honor the legacy of Brother Marquise now that he's passed and call it Two Live Crew Field? Do we name the urinals now across Hard Rock Stadium the Enrique Iglesias urinals? Do we call it the Flow Rider concession stands? I don't know, bro. At this point, now that Mr. 305 is gone, there's really not much you can do. Now, the only move that I think Mario can make to really regain the Miami-Dade population, the 305, the hardcore Miami people, to get back in his corner to make up for such a loss as losing Mr. 305, Mr. Worldwide, Pitbull, is make Udonis Haslem now the chief of staff. If
That's one
Udonis
way.
Haslem becomes chief of staff, it's over. The mayor, come on, bro.
Listen, the problem with that is that Udonis is a Gator at heart.
But Udonis is a Hurricane football fan first, and he's made that clear.
Well, I get that, but it's a bit of a conflict of interest. My thing was the anthem. Do we bring Uncle Luke, who's now in his 60s, out of retirement, so to speak, to maybe do the anthem, to do a new remix for the
I don't know.
Hurricanes?
I don't know if Luke can handle it, bro. I think at this point it might be Uncle Arrhythmia, heart arrhythmia, not Uncle Luke anymore. I don't even
Hey,
handle that booty shaking anymore.
he is coaching high school football here in South Florida, doing a good job at Edison High School. So he's still in shape, bro. I've seen him lately. He's still got it.
Not great shape, but he's in shape. I think the best one might be DJ Laz. I mean, if you've seen DJ Laz, he's kept himself youthful using the Beijing on the beard, as I used to. Not Beijing, I used to use just for men, but I quit doing it because once I'm with a beard to go with the Cuban country singer look or the Cuban
Yes.
Clooney, as I call her on occasion, it got too dark on the beard, man, and it looked okay on the chin strap, but the beard was just a little too dark, and I didn't want to look like I was, Blackbeard the pirate or somebody from a Johnny Depp movie.
Plus, everybody was on YouTube here on our YouTube channel making fun of you, right? Calling you out for using
Oh, there was
the
one guy consistently talks about my facial hair, which
right. He
is
was in
both,
love with you.
yeah, which is both concerning and flattering. And but yeah, he was really on it. He was really on top of how my facial hair looked every week. The specific colors that I was using that week. What dye, if the hairs were properly positioned, if I had shaved the right edges in. He was, was helpful. He was helpful.
He was certainly on it, every detail, and we still do have a lot of interesting commenters on the YouTube page whenever we do a show. Carlos, let's get to some football, shall we? Miami picked to finish third in the ACC last week behind Florida State and Clemson. Voted the 19th best team in college football according to the coaches poll. Mario Cristobal does not vote in that poll, by the way. I looked it up. Quarterback Cam Ward selected the ACC preseason player of the year. And to be honest with you, that's not necessarily a good omen. We'll talk about that later when we get into the five questions facing the Hurricanes this season. But look, Miami had five players on the ACC preseason team, the most of any team. Xavier Restrepo, Ruben Bain, Kiko Mauinoa, Andre Borregales. Florida State had four. Clemson had three. Those are the two teams picked ahead of them, expected to win the conference ahead of Miami, according to the experts. Carlos, that's some news pertaining to the Canes. We also got some news in regard to the opener against the Gators. Their leading rusher, Montrell Johnson, had a scope on his knee. No guarantee he's going to play in the opener. Billy Napier's considering him week to week. 5'11", 216-pound Johnson ran for 817 yards, 5.4 yards a carry last season in 11 starts. He's definitely one of the top players for the Gators and a reason for concern. We're going to get to your mailbag questions in a little bit. But Carlos, reactions to Miami being picked third in the ACC by the media, reaction to Cam Ward being picked as the ACC preseason player of the year, and the other picks for the all conference team, and then Montrell Johnson for the Gators. Does that even hit the radar for you?
I honestly I didn't know who Montel Jordan was, that he played for the Herd for the Gators, or I'm sorry, not Montel Jordan, Montel Williams, is it?
Montreal
Whoever that,
Johnson, Montreal
whatever.
Johnson, yes.
I guess, after dating Kamala Harris, he's joined the Gators. I listen, dude. To me, if I'm Mario, I'm a little pissed off. I'm feeling a little disrespected. Because if five of my guys get named to the All ACC team, the most of any team in the conference, my quarterback gets named the preseason ACC Player of the Year, and we're picked third to finish third, that means that they're pointing the finger at me as I'm the incapable one because I've got the talent to win, apparently, based on what the writers are saying. It's probably the most talented team in the ACC according to the writers, but they're not going to finish uh, within the conference based on that talent. It's not going to be it's not going to be a commiserate finish. That means that they're dissing Mario. That means they don't think the coaching staff can get it done. And we've come to the season with some questions about the decision making, about how the offense was run last year, even though TBD had a big part of that. Decisions that were made. Not going to name names again. It's going to be like Voldemort. We're going to leave that game alone and that knee alone. But it's one of those things where Mario has a lot to prove this season, man. This is, if for those people that don't believe it, this is a pivotal season for the Miami Hurricanes and for Mario Cristobal specifically for his legacy and his reputation. With all this talent coming in, with all these transfers that he's brought in, with the way he's loaded up this roster through the recruiting of the last couple of years, this is his year. This is his window. If he does not at least make the ACC championship game, it's a problem. And if he does really finish third with all these preseason selections, what does that say about him?
You stole my thunder. That was going to be one of the five questions facing the Hurricanes this season and storylines. And I was going to say that's number one on the list, right? Can Mario Cristobal get rid of the stigma attached to his name as a game day coach? We all know how great of a recruiter he is. But ultimately, I think everybody who has doubts about this Hurricanes football team, it's not necessarily about Cam Ward at quarterback. It's not about Ruben Bain on defense or Kiko Mauinoa or the seven defensive linemen with at least 19 career starts on their team that they have, or even the offensive line that he's built. The question's about Mario, right? Like that's seriously the one that everybody when you talk about national respect and when does Miami earn it? They got to see Mario coach better, right? They got to see him make better decisions. And to me, we're going to get more into that here as we delve into the biggest questions facing the season. But I think you hit it on the head, Carlos. That is something that until Mario coaches his way out of it, until Miami maybe steals a game they're not supposed to, or he does something really brilliant, it's going to be something that I think chases him around for a while.
Or at the very least, the results match the talent, right?
Right.
If it doesn't have to be something where he beats a team that he wasn't supposed to beat. It has to be something where at least finish commensurate with the talent you have on the team, where people expect you to finish. And that not only bodes big for him in terms of his future here in Miami and with the legacy and all that kind of stuff, but it also it looms large for recruiting because this will be the third year in a row then if he disappoints and doesn't finish, or doesn't meet expectations, then recruits are going to start turning around and saying, well, why am I going to go over there if he can't win with all this talent? Right? He
Yeah.
should have won, at least finished first or second in the ACC this year, but he didn't even make the title game. Like, what is it going to take for him to do that? How much talent? It's going to have to be totally overwhelming then for him to be able to win. So this is a huge season for Mario Cristobal, I think, in terms of window of opportunity, and he's got to make it happen.
Well, the one thing I would argue, this is the third podcast I'm recording today, Carlos. I've been on a few of them,
So you're
and
on a
so
roll, and I'm just getting warmed up. Listen, I'm coming off. I will tell you this, though. I am coming off a performance in the kitchen here. Okay, it was
okay,
cooking. Get your mind out of the gutter. But I'm going to tie the two together. I'm coming off a performance here in the kitchen, where I just made my daughter say it was the best chicken tenders that she's ever had in her life, man.
that's great.
Panko crusted, baked chicken tenders in the oven with some great rice. And let me tell you, I feel like those times where you hit it, you really hit it, like you gave that effort, that performance. You know what I'm
Right.
talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Nowadays, it only happens when there's it's lunar eclipse where Uranus is retrograde, and I've had a gallon of guarapo. That's the only time it happens nowadays. But today in the kitchen, boy, I brought that noise. And yes, listen, I could already sense it. I'm like Minority Report, precognition. Those of you that are trying to type and say it's not pronounced Uranus, that wouldn't make the joke funny. So kiss my anus.
Carlos, you you went on a roll there. I appreciate it. No, this is the third time I've talked about this topic today because it's funny, but like everybody wants to talk about the pressure on Mario. It's the reality of it, right? Like, what are fair expectations? Could he be on the hot seat? Let's start with the hot seat. First of all, the guy is in the third year of a 10-year contract, okay? And I mean, three podcasts. I'm telling you, I've had all other conversations with parents. I just took Jocelyn to her travel soccer team meeting, okay? And the first thing parents said when they saw me was, "Is Mario going to win this year? Is he going to screw it up?" Okay? That's the conversation on the street, right? Like, is he going to screw it up? And everybody is having that is the number one topic. So let's get to number one. He's not going to be on the hot seat, okay? And I
No,
explained this to a father earlier tonight. Uh, third year of a 10-year contract, okay? And let's be real here. Miami's NIL, this whole push for the collective, it's not happening with Mario Cristobal not here. Okay. The people who are supporting this program financially, okay, the people who are paying a lot of the bills, I don't know if they come out of the woodwork to help fund this movement if Manny Diaz is here or somebody else that they didn't necessarily approve of. Okay. They went out, brought in Mario Cristobal. He was handpicked by the brass and the people with money at the University of Miami because they believe he is the guy. And so far, talent acquisition, roster build, you have to agree, Carlos. This team is built the right way from the line of scrimmage out, right? They went out, they bought the quarterback they needed. They went out, they got the running back they needed. They went out and got a third receiver to
they Instacarted
complement.
all that shit. They needed it all.
Listen, they Instacarted everything. Okay. I don't know if all those guys get paid for, okay, without Mario Cristobal being here. So he has done his job assembling the Avengers. Now he needs to go out and dominate and get the guy who does this. What character is that? Because I'm forgetting his name now.
That's Thanos.
That's Thanos. They got to
Yeah.
go out and beat Thanos. Okay. They got to beat Mike Norvell because
The
Mike,
problem is that in my opinion, I don't know. He's got to prove that he's Nick Fury this year. If you're going to do an analogy with the Avengers, is he the leader that the Avengers will assemble the Avengers and get them in the right position and get them to where they need to go to save the world? The issue is Mario's not going to be on the hot seat. That's clear. He's not going to get fired after year three, four, maybe even five. The problem becomes if he falls short again this season, then this team is going to be mired in mediocrity moving forward, and all you can expect moving forward is going to be those 9, 8, maybe a 10-win season here and there, and not the elite status that they once expected when Mario came in here. Because if he does not show and prove this season with all this talent, kids are going to
but,
have second
but
thoughts about coming
Carlos,
to the University of Miami, no matter how much money they throw at him.
Carlos, let's quantify this right now. What is failing to meet expectations? Is it the over under for wins? Is it 9.5? Because
It's
if
not
my
making the ACC title game with all this talent.
so it's not making the ACC title game, right? It's underachieving in terms of not getting to the conference title
It's
game,
finishing
which
third as predicted.
it's finishing third or worse. So it
Right.
doesn't matter if that's 10 wins and finishing third, because they
No.
could technically finish with 10 wins, lose two ACC games, and be left out of the conference championship.
Yes.
Okay. So
But what is
that,
it worth? What is it? Because at the end of it all, what is the 10 wins worth?
right,
Right? You've done exactly the same thing that every other coach that's come before you here at the University of Miami has done, except for Mark Richt, which is failed to make an ACC title game. So what is it worth? Yes, you've propped up a 10-win season. Yes, it's more wins than they've had since 2017. But other than that, why are you not winning the big games? And then again, it also matters how these games are lost, right? Clearly, because of what we've seen in the past. So is it because of decisions that he makes, or is it maybe catastrophic injury, or maybe it's just a fluke situation? Those things can happen, but if it's based on decisions made by the coaching staff, or it's clearly something that could be pointed back to him, and it's another failure of him as a coach, then at that point it's a bigger problem because like I said, kids are going to turn around and look at each other and say, "Well, what the hell are we going to do going there if this is the result with all
right.
that talent?" Right? And the NIL boosters are going to start looking around at each other, collectively saying, "How much more money are we going to pour down this hole, this endless pit, and get zero return on that investment?" There has to be something, at least a step in the right direction, at least a leap forward. And Mario's done a great job with talent acquisition, and I think that's also put more pressure on him now. Because had he gone into the season without Cam Ward and Damian Martinez and all these guys he got in the transfer portal late, then maybe, it'd be less pressure coming in. And if he progressed to 8 wins, I think everybody would have been happy. 9 wins, everybody would have been satisfied. But now, like you said, five guys, preseason all ACC, predicted ACC player of the year. You've got all this talent coming in and the most talent in the conference, supposedly at the most important position on the field. You gotta do it, bro. You gotta make it happen.
All right, so let's go over a couple hypotheticals here, only because we want to quantify stuff here. All right, let's assume for a second that somehow, some way, they go 11-1, but they don't get into the ACC title game because of tiebreakers, because whatever it is, they just don't get in. Right? They lose to the wrong team, and somebody else that they don't play goes undefeated, and they just end up outside the ACC title game, but go to the college football playoff. Does making the playoff supersede winning the conference?
That makes a huge difference because now you're talking about a one-loss team and a fluke because somebody else finished undefeated. It would have to probably be two teams finishing undefeated or the team they lost who also finishing 11-1 and leaping ahead of them to play in the ACC title game. But if they make the college football playoff, that makes a huge difference. But chances are, that'll be very unlikely for the ACC to have that kind of a setup. But if it happens, the conference looks good, Miami looks good, and they've done a hell of a job.
All right, so make the ACC title game or make the college football playoff. Is that a fair? And that's with a healthy Cam Ward, right? We're going to quantify this
Yes,
and say
that's fair.
Cam Ward is your quarterback, and you got to make the ACC championship. And if not, let's say you lose the ACC championship, you get hosed out of a playoff spot, you go 10-2, miss the playoffs, right? You just miss
What are the
getting in.
chances of the third place ACC team making the playoff?
Not good.
Not good.
No, not in my opinion, not good. I think there'll only be two ACC teams that get in at most.
Right.
So let's assume for a second they get into the ACC title game. They lose to Florida State because that's my favorite team, right? That's what everybody thinks. They
Uh-huh.
lose to Florida State. Clemson finishes 10-2, doesn't get to the ACC title game, but Clemson gets in ahead of Miami. What do you do then?
I think it's a successful season. They've gotten to the championship game, right? That's
Hmm.
the goal. That's one of the main goals. That's a large sign of progress because it's since 2004, or since they instituted the ACC title game, this team has only made one ACC championship game in its entirety in the conference, right? Its entire
Okay.
history in the conference. So getting there again is proof that, you know what? This is working. What we're building here is working. There's forward momentum, and we're pushing to be elite. We're taking another step forward, and that's understandable. You lose to a team that's going to be in the college football playoff, a team like Florida State that if they are the ACC champion, probably had a hell of a season, is going to be in the playoff, is going to make some more noise in the playoff. You know, it happens. You're going to get screwed by voters. You're going to get screwed by the people that put together the playoff because they want Clemson in. They love Dabble Sweeney. They love to hang from his chipmunk nuts. His chipmunk nuts. Then hey, it is what it is. But at least you got to the title game. That to me is a huge improvement.
All right. So title game or playoff appearance, either or. You don't have to
Right.
necessarily win the conference. All right. Fair enough. Now, what if Cam Ward, God forbid, I'm not speaking this into existence, but let's say he gets hurt and he misses 2/3 of the season. All right. You only got him for the first month. Bad luck strikes against Virginia Tech or something by the time you start ACC
Oh my God,
play.
you even have to pick a team out. This is
And,
this is you are
and
putting such bad vibes out.
let's just assume it happens. You don't have him for the conference season, for most of the conference year, and you finish 8-4. What do you say then?
First of all, I rebuke your statement. I rebuke your hypothetical. I rebuke all the negativity that comes with it. But if that happens, then it's understandable. You lost your best player on offense, probably. ACC Player of the Year predicted. The most important position on the field. If you finish 8-4, it's understandable because they don't have anyone behind them that's comparable.
Okay. Fair enough. So we've quantified what a successful season for Mario Cristobal is. All right. We've done that, right? That's one of the main big questions of this hurricane season. We've established it here on August 7th. Carlos, strike the
Now let's
gavel
give you
down.
another scenario. Let me give you another
Go ahead.
hypothetical here. How would it feel to Hurricanes fans? I talked about this on my podcast. If they lose to Florida State in the regular season, make the ACC title game, and then lose to Florida State again.
Telling you people would not be happy. 3 losses to Florida teams. Woof, that would not go over well, brother.
And Mike Norvell crowning himself Mario Cristobal's daddy, that's not fun. I know you'd love that, but that's not fun.
All right, let's move on to the next major question facing this team because Carlos, as much as we can point the finger at the head coach of this organization, right? We've pointed it at Larry Coker for not doing a good enough job recruiting. We can point it at Randy Shannon for hiring some really bad coaches, not having the budget to hire good coaches, but struggling to hire good coaches and offensive coordinators. We can point the finger at Al Golden for taking the wrong approach and trying to turn guys like Anthony Chickalo into 3-4 defensive linemen because
And
he
wearing
came
a
from
tie and long sleeve shirt
and
in 95-degree
right,
weather.
right. We can point the finger at who else? Mark Richt for building a nice stadium, but only taking us, the Miami Hurricanes, once to the ACC Championship game in his time here. And then we can point the finger at Manny Diaz for just not being good, other than coming up with the
And not speaking
turnover
Spanish
gem.
or knowing how to make Cuban coffee.
Right. We can point the finger at all of those guys. And we can turn around and point the finger at Mario Cristobal if this season is a disappointment again. But at what point, Carlos, at what point do we question the mentality, the toughness, the mental toughness of the players in this organization for withstanding a loss? Because every time adversity is hit over the last 20 years, Carlos, and it's hit often, this team's mental capacity gets shot down. Think back to the Alabama loss, right? So much preseason hype. Oh, Miami's going to be great. They get stomped by Alabama on opening night. Do not turn it around, right? Think about last season. You go 4-0 to start the year. You play Georgia Tech in the ACC opener. Yes, your coach blew it, but you could have recovered from that. You could have shown up the rest of the year. Instead, you win 3 of your last 9 games. That's it. 3 of the last 9 games. At what point here does Miami turn the corner as an organization? Are they going to be mentally tough enough themselves in the locker room? You got all this talent. You've got alpha males. You've got Cam Ward at quarterback. You got Kiko Mauinoa at linebacker. You've got Ruben Bain on the defensive line. You've got Francis Mauigoa on the. When do the excuses stop with the coaches, and when do the excuses stop with the players?
I think it's everyone. I don't think you just separate it, one from the other. I think ultimately, as you're recruiting, you have to recruit to your culture as well, right? You have to not just recruit based on talent, but recruit based on what you think these guys are in terms of mental fit for your organization, your team, and the type of culture you're trying to fit. Your culture has to be stronger than the challenges you face. If your culture isn't stronger than the adversity that's coming your way, then you're ultimately going to fail no matter how talented you are. And that's part of not only talent acquisition, but it's also setting the tone from the top down and instilling the proper culture and values within the organization. If they don't do that, then that house is going to crumble. You have to set that foundation. And I think, going back to something we discussed in the past, looking at the U Part 2 and hearing Butch Davis say that he had a sports psychologist create a rubric or a framework for the type of mental attributes he needed to find in players to build the kind of team he wanted to build. And he not only looked after the talent or went after the talent, but made sure that these players hit those check marks, check those boxes of what he was looking for mentally and in terms of their values and who they were. That's what built the team. That's what helped them because they were also recruiting guys that were underrated, but they fit that culture and they fit that mold, and he knew he could build them into something better. So it's that's all part of it. I think at the end of the day, you have to do more than just pick out guys based on their stars, but you also have to be able to build a culture internally in the building. You have to develop them as players, and you have to get guys that are willing to be coachable and run through a wall for you. I think at this point, the one thing that's been lacking, I think for the last 20 years mostly, has been the alpha leader within the locker room. There hasn't been that kind of a guy. And we've talked about it before, like an Ed Reed, a Jonathan Vilma, guys that will walk up and be the police of the locker room, that will self-police what goes on there. There's no Brett Romberg. There's no guys like that in that locker room, or there haven't been in a while. Can Cam Ward be that? Can Francisco Mauanoa be that? That's what they need more than anything. And I think that's not just for the Hurricanes. I think in general in our society, we're lacking heroes. We're lacking alpha males. We're lacking guys like a Hulk Hogan or a Rambo or to me, Bruce Willis and Die Hard. All that, the best Christmas movie of all time, by the way. You need that sort of an alpha male. And, I just realized that some people may take that as a political statement. That's not a political statement. I just loved all those guys growing up. So there you go. They need someone in the locker room that could circle the wagons, get everybody on the same page, and not have to rely on the coaching staff to be the ones to fire them up and put them in line. They should be able to do that themselves. At least the older guys on the roster, the ones that they're going to count on the field, should be able to get the guys together and get them to execute. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. When you are in a contact sport or you are in an environment that there is so much strain on you physically and mentally, you have to be able to do it for each other and rely on your brother and the guy next to you. If you're not willing to do that, if you're not able to do that, then the house crumbles. It's like a house of cards. You can't just rely on the guy on the top. It has to be about the guys in the locker room and doing it for each other and wanting to push forward to reach that goal collectively. And if there's not that mentality, if it's what it's been for the last 20 years, I want to get drafted. I want the money. I want the girls. I want the fame. I want the hype. Then it's not going to work.
Yeah, and I when I look at Cam Ward and I met his parents up in Charlotte, Carlos, they were there for media day, and I got a chance to talk to them behind the scenes, and I got to know Cam a little bit better, just where he comes from, right? What's his fabric? What's he made of? Um, He's here. You're talking about a guy whose career began at the FCS level, who was a zero-star recruit, a guy who, to this day, when he plays board games with his parents, fights with them, and it doesn't like losing with board games. Now, look, he hasn't done a lot of winning on the field. Washington State wasn't very good last year. I think they were 5-7. He didn't have a ton of victories under his belt there, but I think coming to Miami, the respect that he's already garnered in the locker room, the fact that his teammates think of him as an NFL guy, I think he does have a lot of pull. And I think as long as he stays in control, as long as he maintains the kind of guy that he is and doesn't let fame or something else slip into um, and cause weakness, then I think he's going to have guys buying in behind him. But you're right. I think everything about this team, everything about the greatness of Miami in the heydays was guys who police themselves, right? And Mario can build a roster. We've seen that. It's fact. He did it at Oregon. He built a hell of a team at Oregon. Okay. He did it at FIU. He built FIU into a quality group of five school. He's done it at three places. He's been around great builders. He did it at Alabama, did it at Rutgers with Greg Schiano. Okay. He's been around the block, and everywhere he's been, he's built a quality football program. The problem is the X's and O's with him. And then Miami in itself, the biggest hurdle I think Miami faces is this one. Can they get mentally tough again? Can they have real swagger, not fake swagger? And I think that's going to be the telltale sign whether or not this program is back. Forget the guys who get drafted, forget the guys who come in here as five stars. That's going to happen. There's going to be quality players coming in and out of this program. It's do these guys show up on Saturday, whip out their nuts, and shove it in the other guy's mouth? And that's when we know the Hurricanes will be back.
Whoa. All right. Hey, now we're talking.
All
Oh
right.
shit. All right.
All right. Listen,
Marbles in the mouth.
marbles in the mouth, brother. That's when we know they're back. Everybody wants to know when is the U back? That's when they're back. All right. Look, let's get to the roster because there are some questions about it. We've talked a lot about exterior things, coaching, locker room, that kind of stuff. I think the biggest question mark going into the season, we've talked about this ad nauseum in the offseason. It's who steps up to replace Cam Kitchens as Miami's quarterback on defense, right? The secondary. Mish Powell has come in. He's going to be one of the two starting safeties. If you listen to Lance Guidry this week, he did a press conference. He mentioned how Jaden Harris is going to start next to him. You're going to have Zaquan Patterson. You're going to have Markeith Williams rotating in. But Carlos, you and I know the safety position, most important position on defense, right? Because those are the guys who line everybody up. And I would say the one challenge Miami faces this season is Mish Powell's a slot corner. He's really not a safety. He can play safety, but he's not a safety. Cam Kitchens came in, safety. He knows how to police guys. He knows how to put guys in the right spot, right? James Williams, athleticism, talent, skill, but not a thinker. Cam Kitchens is the thinker, okay? He was the genius on the defense. He was the guy that Lance Guidry could turn to and point to. Mish Powell, super smart guy. I'm not saying he can't be Cam Kitchens. My issue is who steps up and really delivers in that regard. And I think that is going to be the number one question facing this team. They're going to put pressure on the quarterback. They're going to tackle guys. Kiko Marino is going to do a great job. I like their depth at linebacker. They're going to rotate 7, 8, 9, 10 defensive linemen in there that are all very, very good. But when push comes to shove, when you want to beat Florida State, when you want to beat Florida, when you want to go on the road and win in Louisville, when you want to pull off an upset in the college football playoff, right? And move on. Safety has to be an elite player. And I don't know if that is right now.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think middle linebacker may be the most important player on the defense because he not only aligns the backers but the front as well with the defensive lineman, makes calls, makes checks. He's the safety is the most important player in the secondary and second overall, I think, to me in the defense. But I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. And the other thing is this: I don't think they necessarily need to be elite. I don't think he needs to be Cam Kitchens on that back end to be an All-American type player. I think he needs to be at least competent. I think if they don't make major mistakes, if they're in the right spots, if they're at least not making because they don't know their assignment or who they're picking up, that's going to go a long way because what they're going to lack in terms of talent and ability in the secondary to cover guys one on one is going to be made up for with that front, specifically with that defensive line. So that's going to go a long way. I think so long as they're competent and they're in the right spots, and yeah, guys are going to get behind them every once in a while, but is the quarterback going to have enough time to get the ball there, deliver a strike to get the ball to that guy in the right spot? Whereas if they're not competent, if there's a blown coverage, then it doesn't matter. That defense does the defensive line is not going to have enough time to get to that quarterback because he's going to see it right away and let that ball go. So they need to be in the right spots. If they're at least competent, respectable and don't blow coverages on the back end, they should be okay. They're not going to be elite, but they should be okay.
Carlos, Cam Kitchens wasn't always perfect. Okay, he wasn't. There were plenty of mistakes he
Yeah.
made. There were times we criticized him for taking too many chances to try to get interceptions. But I will say this, he did it for 3 years. He was the voice back there. He was the
Hmm.
leader. He's the guy who told Kiko Mauinoa, move up, watch the running back out of the backfield, watch the tight end over the middle. Somebody's got to quarterback that defense. Somebody's got to sit there and look at keys and tell everybody
Yep.
else in the secondary, this is what's coming out of the backfield. This is what's coming from the tight end. Watch the crossing route. Somebody has to do that. And I think we underestimate the value of the safety position in this game. Cam Kitchens obviously was a good player, all-American, third round pick of the Los Angeles Rams, starting his career in the NFL. I do think we're going to miss him on this team.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's going to be missed.
Yeah, and I think, listen, this is how you make up for that. The reason why Cam Kitchens was able to do that was because he was a student of the game. He watched film. He understood the opponent. He knew what was coming because he saw the opponent doing it week after week on tape before it happened. And he understood the game of football. I think collectively as a unit, if that secondary can come together and maybe not have one Cam Kitchens, but have a bunch of guys that get together as a group and really study film and get to see what's coming week to week, then maybe they could help each other. And what one person misses, the other can pick up. And that's the way they should do it as a collective unit. There may be not that one guy. Maybe Beach Polly isn't that Cam Kitchens kind of guy that can put guys in the right spots. But if everybody understands their assignment, does their homework, preps, and gets ready week to week, they should be okay.
All right. One question that I think is under the radar, something that we're not talking more about. And I think part of it is Miami's faith in
Pisces.
Mario.
Pisces. Oh, that. Never mind.
One thing that we're not talking enough about is, and this is because of the faith in Alex Mirabal, the faith in Mario Cristobal to recruit Carlos. This is something that I think could become a problem if there are injuries. Does Miami have the depth on its offensive line to withstand major losses? Are we overlooking a deficiency on this team? I think so. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got 7 or 8 guys they can count on. Obviously a starting five, and then maybe 2 or 3 guys off the bench they could count on. But other than that, if there's a wholesale load of injuries across the board, after that, it gets pretty thin. They lost some guys in the transfer portal. Obviously guys weren't getting as much run as they thought they should have gotten, maybe deservedly so. They didn't get enough run. But right now, if you have a couple injuries on that offensive line, especially at the tackle positions, you're in trouble.
Yeah, Jalen Rivers is back, 25 career starts. You got Zach Carpenter in the middle. He's the one transfer that Miami picked up, 27 career starts between Michigan and Indiana. Inez Cooper, monster right guard, 18 career starts. And then sophomore Francis Mauinoa started all 13 games last year for the Hurricanes and is an absolute beast. But when you go beyond those four guys, Carlos, first of all, you're going to have Matthew McCoy, a new starting left guard. He's got 168 career snaps or 162 career snaps under his belt. He's going to be your left guard. Look, Alex Mirabal is super fired up about him. He says we're going to be talking about him more than some of the returning guys because of how good he thinks he can be. First recruit Alex Mirabal started recruiting. First guy that he was really excited about when he took the job. I have faith that Matthew McCoy is going to be good. The problem is when you go to the bench, this is your bench in terms of experience, Carlos. Ryan Rodriguez, who started the bowl game at center, and Luis Cristobal, extremely undersized, super smart guy, but 6 career starts at Georgia State and limited snaps here with the Hurricanes. That's your experience on the bench. So both of those guys to me are centers or guards. They're not tackles. Now, you got a 5-star kid in Samson Okunlola, who everybody has a lot of hope for, who thinks when Jalen Rivers is out of here, between him and Francis Mauinoa, you're going to have two studs at that tackle position. The problem is Samson Okunlola played a total of 30 snaps last year. Okay. He got hurt, missed a lot of time. He's back now. He's competing. He's fighting to be in the mix. He is the sixth offensive lineman on this team. But beyond that, you got Antonio Tripp, who's a second year player. You've got Bruno Bruno Kinsler, who's a second year player. You've got Frankie Tinalau, who's a second year player. You got Markel Bell, the JUCO arrival. You got Derek Plaz, the freshman. Nino Francavilla, who's a center freshman, and Juan Manaya, freshman. Like all you need is a couple little bad breaks here or there, and this thing could kind of become problematic for Miami. So, excuse the burp, folks. Excuse the balls in the mouth comment earlier, but we're rolling here. We're
Are the two
passionate.
are the two related?
They're not. They're not, Carlos. But I think it's a serious concern because you've got depth on the defensive line. You've got, as I said, 7, 8 guys there that have played a lot of football. Not to mention 3 5-star guys that you just picked up. Okay, that one of them in Justin Scott, who made Bruce Feldman's top 100 list for freaks. Okay, for this coming season, him and Maui Noah are the two freaks on the Miami roster. So my point is, I think it's sort of an underrated, undervalued like issue going into the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but again, listen, any position, any injury at a critical position where you don't have the depth is going to be a problem. Like if you get, like you said, Cam Ward gets injured, you get Mish Powell injured, you get a corner injured, all those things could be disastrous for the Hurricanes, and it's a result of there not being enough sort of depth within the roster, right? There's not enough staggering of classes there because they're rebuilding the roster and a lot of times plugging holes to try and fill the holes that were left over in past years where the classes weren't properly structured. Mario's making up for that now, and he's trying to build that roster in a way that's sustainable over time. But for right now, there's still holes, and you've got to do what you can with the patchwork.
Yeah, it's you don't have perfect depth, and I think that's where more than anything I brought this up because I want people to understand. Yes, it's year 3. Yes, he's had back-to-back top 7 recruiting classes. Yes, this roster is all Mario, right? Like we've got 8 or 9 guys left from the
It's a Mario.
from the Manny from the Manny Diaz era, right? But the point is, you're still working to build the kind of depth that you want, and it
Yeah.
takes the offensive lineman a couple years. Like, yes, they didn't want to, bring in a bunch of transfers on the offensive line to serve as backups, but in the event there's injury, you are basically counting on second year guys to step into some big shoes. That's all I'm saying. That's all
They
I'm
must
trying to
feel
say.
really good about him then.
They must, but I'm a little worried. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say. Um, all right, Carlos. Last topic before we get to the mailbag, as I sit here and see how many mailbag questions we've had sent in here. Um, this is a big one. Can Cam Ward
That's what she
live
said.
up? Can Cam Ward live up to the preseason hype? All right. He was picked the ACC preseason player of the year, Carlos. And because, research is my thing, I went back and I looked at every ACC preseason player of the year since 2010. First of all, this is the first time Miami's had an ACC preseason player of the year since 2010. Okay. They've been in the league a long time. No other Hurricanes have been preseason player of the year in the conference. I didn't go all the way back to 2004. So if somehow there's a hurricane in 2004, 2005 that were, my apologies. I didn't do all the research. But since 2010, you've had Christian Ponder, you had Montel Harris at Boston College, Sammy Watkins, Taj Boyd, Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, AJ Dillon, Trevor Lawrence, Sam Howell, Devin Leary, and Drake May. All of those guys were selected, some of them twice, as the ACC preseason player of the year. How many of them actually were the preseason player of the year at the end of the season, Carlos? How many would you guess if you had to give me a number
One.
between 3? 3. So it's not terrible, but 3 of them actually lived up to the hype. Deshaun Watson in 2015, Lamar Jackson in 2017, and Trevor Lawrence in 2020, the COVID shortened year. All of those guys obviously had big time success. Jackson, of course, won the Heisman the year before in 2016. Watson led Clemson to the championship game. Lawrence, stellar freshman year, a redshirt freshman year, and then just number 1 overall pick. Cam Ward, what I'm trying to get at here is it doesn't happen often that the guys get bestowed the preseason player of the year and then go out and deliver it. How much confidence you have that Cam Ward is actually going to deliver on all this hype?
I think he can be the ACC Player of the Year. My concern is there's a lot of I think the expectations are a little bit out of whack, right? So there's people that are expecting him to win the Heisman Trophy or compete for it here as that are Hurricane fans, and I would say pump the brakes, right? I don't think he's going to have a 40 touchdown season. Let's just put that out there. He's not going to throw for 5,000 yards. He's not going to be one of those guys that just statistically blows you away because number one, the Hurricanes aren't going to throw the ball that often, right? They will throw it. They'll pitch it around the park a little bit more than you're used to, but they are not going to throw it 40 times a game or get him in a position where he's throwing 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. That's just not the way this offensive system is set up. That's not the way Mario plays. That's not the way he wants to play. Okay. And I will even give you another thing, even leading the country, being one of the top quarterbacks in terms of attempts last year, Cam Ward only threw 27 touchdowns. Now, we're playing in a run and shoot offense where they threw the ball all over the field all the time, basically. He only threw 27 touchdowns, didn't throw for 4,000 yards. So let's put a cap on those expectations. Now, can be the ACC Player of the Year throwing for 3,800 and 35. I think that's more in line with what you might see.
Well, more so than numbers, I think it's all going to come down to winning, right? Like when you think about Drake May, when he won the postseason award, not the preseason award, the postseason award in 2022, he led North Carolina to the ACC Championship Game. Jordan Travis last year, the ACC Player of the Year. Clearly, Florida State was the best team in the league. When Kenny Pickett led Pitt to the championship game, he was Player of the Year.
But
So,
they also had monster years.
yeah, they also had monster years, but point is, it was accompanied by winning.
Right.
It was accompanied with leading your team somewhere. I think Lamar Jackson's the only guy who didn't play for the conference championship the year that they were voted postseason player of the year. Travis Etienne twice got it. Lawrence got it once. Uh, Watson, James Conner, all those guys I think actually had like
Hey,
championship game appearances. So
and it serves to it's stands to reason that if he plays at that level where he's worthy of that award at the end of the season, the Hurricanes should be in that ACC title game. You would expect it.
right. Big questions, Carlos. I mean, it's all to me, those are the five biggest ones as we get into the middle of camp here.
What I'm disappointed with is the biggest question that didn't get asked at ACC Media Day that you were going to ask, and that was, does Mario know how to make a pomita? You didn't ask that question, and you didn't
I
ask him if he
yes,
uses tateta on the coffee.
you're absolutely right. I let you down, and at some point, I'm hoping that I can get Mario again to discuss those kind of questions with me if it's
They're
cool.
burning questions that everybody wants to know.
They're very much burning questions, Carlos. All right. I'm going to our mailbag list here as we sent it out 45 minutes before the show. This one is from Jesse Blanco. Asked you guys the same question last August. Who plays in a title game first? National championship, the Hurricanes or the Dolphins? Carlos?
A a Super Bowl and a national championship game?
Yeah, Super Bowl national championship game. Correct.
Oh shoot. Wow. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't trust the Dolphins this year. I think the roster still has some holes. I don't trust that offensive line. Tua's got to prove himself that he can win big games. Unless they get home field throughout, I don't see the Dolphins getting a track towards the Super Bowl. With Cam Ward, maybe they catch fire. Maybe they get a couple lucky breaks in the playoff. I'll go with Hurricanes.
I'm gonna go with Hurricanes as well, and a lot of that just has to do with the fact that I don't think Tua is an elite quarterback, and I don't
Oh,
think
you
he's.
said it. Shots fired.
I know
Shots
that
fired.
I know that people are gonna rip me for that. I'm a Tua hater. Blah blah blah. Sorry, just don't believe in that guy as far as a winner in the playoffs. Just something about his game, totally predicated on timing, totally predicated on speedy receivers. Just not a Tua believer, and it's just the way I see it. And I'd only give you my honesty on here,
I think you
whenever
once
you
called
ask.
him a poor man's Chad Pennington, is what you said.
Yeah, I did. All right, this is from Tua Believer. You're gonna love this. That's
Oh,
literally the
great
next guy
transition
on the
here. There we
list.
go.
Ginger Man Cannon did. Really impressed by how Mario and Alex recruit the offensive line. But in all seriousness, does this roster have too many? Especially with being able to keep. I understand stacking, but do you want to lose kids either? How does this play out? Look, the only guy I'm worried about Miami losing right now would be Samson Okunlola because he's a very
Yeah.
high profile player. I mentioned this in one of my responses to preseason questions. His brother just transferred to Colorado. You know who's there in charge of Colorado.
Who's in
Um,
Colorado again?
yeah,
Some guy?
Dion. Yeah, Dion Sanders.
Oh, that guy, that guy, that guy.
Yeah, he just got his brother to transfer over there. If Dion is still coaching at Colorado, which I don't necessarily think is going to be the case, but if he is, how is he not going to try to tamper and bring over Samson Okunlola to his team? I'm just saying, it's out there. if Samson Okalola's not starting or for whatever happens this year, he's not able to get on the field. I'm just saying, I think that's the one guy I worry about. But I'm not worried about the rest of the way that they're recruiting the position. I think they're doing it well. I think it just takes time, as we had a whole segment dedicated to this topic. I think it takes time for offensive linemen to develop. You can put an edge rusher out there 15 to 20 snaps, and you don't, the Reuben Baines don't grow on trees. I'm not saying that's common, but you can get a guy like Reuben Bain to give you 15, 20 snaps while Senior plays the rest of the game, and he could be effective for you. The offensive line doesn't work that way. There has to be cohesion between players, and there has to be guys who can physically line up and batter the person in front of them. And for a lot of these guys, that takes 2 years of development, not one. Just saying.
Yeah, not only that, but they also have to learn the scheme, the system, how the reads work up front in terms of the fronts they're going to face
Correct.
defensively in relation to the what they're how they're blocking things. So blocking things at the college level is a lot different than it is at the high school level. And now you can't get away with just being a big dude. You can get away with being just a big dude in high school and mauling people. That doesn't work at the college level because everyone's big, everyone's strong.
All right, this is from Ivan Hood 305 on Twitter. Will Dawson really use the tight ends now that they seem healthy? Um, it's a very interesting question. It depends on what you mean by use the tight end, right?
Oh
Because
yeah,
they
he's going to use them like they'll play. Now, are they going
well,
to catch the ball?
I think a lot of this is predicated on how healthy Elijah Royal really is. The injury that he had, he wasn't himself when he came back last year. He got hurt again when he came back. He tweaked it and was scared. He didn't play like a confident dude when he was out there. And, some of the other guys that they had recruited, Jaleel Skinner, who ended up transferring to Louisville, just didn't fit the mold of what they wanted. And then you ended up playing McCormick because he could block. He was kind of a sixth offensive lineman out there. So, I think a lot of this comes down to Arroyo, and then there will be a smattering of the other Elijah. I think Elijah Lofton is a gifted player, and I think he's going to be used sort of as a special weapon in this offense, right? When you have a big play on third down and the defense hasn't seen Elijah Lofton yet, you trot him out there, and he surprises the hell out of the defense, right? He's somebody that they didn't see on tape. I don't think you come out and use Elijah Lofton in this Shannon Dawson offense unless you have to, unless you really need something special, because you got other guys that can do stuff at the receiver position. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, saying Shannon Dawson offense and special in the same breath is it's kind of strange. But hey,
All right, this is Von Kane. Only one question. Do we believe? I'm not asking it because I don't, but it's still a question. I really want to buy into the hype, but first things first. How does Mario beat Florida? All right, Carlos, two questions in there from Von Kane. Do you believe?
listen, you got me thinking back to Ted Lasso. I just want to put up the believe sign and slap it on the way into the stadium. Um, listen, if Mario could be like Ted Lasso and bring these guys together, then we got a shot. What was the second question?
How does Mario beat Florida?
How does Mario beat Florida? By not shooting himself in the foot. I think that's why the Florida game actually concerns me a lot. I think a lot of the weaknesses that we feel going into this season, specifically like we were just talking about from a mental standpoint, and foundationally, culturally, will get tested at Florida. They will have a situation in that game, I'm sure, where a turnover happens, where a bad play happens, or a series of bad plays happen, and they find themselves up against the wall with a hostile crowd raining down on them, and they have to figure out how do we get the game back on track. And that's going to show whether this team has grown year to year in terms of their mental toughness, their ability to handle adversity, and what they're going to look like moving forward. If they could overcome that type of a situation, game one on the road, Florida may be 5-7 this year, right? They may be 4-8, but the swamp is still no joke to play in. So if they can overcome that in that kind of environment, then we'll feel good about the season. But I think it's mainly not shooting themselves in the foot and being able to come. It's like basketball, being able to stop the run and overcome it.
Tackling is always difficult week one, right? And I think the injury to Montrell Johnson, not Montrell Jordan. I know you were gonna sing "This
Yeah, hey,
is how we
listen, this
do
is
it."
how we do it, right?
Yeah. I think the injury to him is significant because he is the bell cow in their backfield. He is the most trusted running back. And if he's seriously hurt or can't really be at 100%, that's a huge advantage for Miami because Florida's going to have to run the football. They've got
Yeah.
receivers. Trey Wilson is good. Their quarterback, Graham Mertz, is accurate. He can spin the ball. But if you're one dimensional in that game and you can't run the football because you can't trust the young backs that you have yet, or they're just not good at blitz pickup or whatever else you need them to do, then that causes serious issues for Florida. Just saying. All right. This one
Yeah,
last.
listen, if I'm Florida, I'm slinging it at him.
Yeah, they're going to sling it at Miami, and it's going to be up to the defensive line to put pressure on Mertz. And look, Florida's offensive line is not great. I think
Yep.
Miami can cause problems, be disruptive, but when you can have some level of balance on your offense, that's going to not allow your pass rushers to just tee off. And I think that's obviously something that would be a hindrance to Florida in that game. All right, this is from
Yeah, we'll
Miami.
discuss that in the game one preview.
Yeah, this is from Miami Hurricanes enthusiast. Best slash worst possible cases for the offense this coming year besides injury. All right, I'm the negative guy here. I'll go with worst. I think the worst case scenario is that Cam Ward doesn't change himself in terms of feeling like he needs to make amazing plays, where he needs to buy himself time, hold on to the football, and take off and run. He had a fumbling issue. He's had a fumbling issue in his career. What Miami needs him to
Yep.
do is protect the football. Hand it off. Let Damian Martinez, let Mark Fletcher, let AJ Allen, different guys in this offense touch the football, make the simple play. Be happy with a 4 yard run, right? Be happy with a throw out of bounds. Do not force the ball into coverage and make the mistakes. I think that is the worst case scenario for Miami, that Cam Ward comes here, gets paid a lot of money to come here and doesn't change his personality in the sense of this is the way he played at Washington State and he thinks he has to play the same way here. Miami doesn't need that guy. Miami doesn't need Cam Ward to, extend plays with his legs and take off running and score the most touchdowns in the red zone like he did at Washington State. They need him to prove that he can handle what he's given on a week to week basis and get the ball out quickly to his receivers. Xavier Restrepo is going to make tough catches. Jacoby Joy is going to get past guys on defense. Sam Brown is going to get into the open field and take balls to the house. You're going to have Elijah Lofton doing a sprinkling in here and there. You're going to have Elijah Royal, assuming he's healthy, catching the ball over the middle of the field. You're going to have JoJo Trader. You're going to have the big kid at receiver whose name I'm forgetting right now, the Isaiah Horton. You're going to have guys that can make plays. He doesn't need to be special. He just needs to be responsible.
I would say that, to me, the biggest concern with the offense would be, is the offense sort of constricted in terms of the way they operate game to game? And are they not given enough? Is Cam Ward not given enough in terms of what's the play calling to be, you know, competent, to be special, even make big plays, and not be able to spread the ball around the way he wants to, or the way the offense can, to really take advantage of the playmakers? Is the play calling, or the way it's constricted, the constriction of the offense, set up in a way where the playmakers aren't being given the opportunity to make plays? That's my biggest concern. Are they going to line up in 21 personnel with two tight ends in wing positions, or a tight end in a wing, and try and run inside zone 55 times a game and win it that way? Or are they going to try and spread the ball around and be a little bit more creative, like I've asked them to be for the last 2 years?
Well, look, Shannon Dawson, I asked him a question for you. I didn't ask the Espomita question, but I did ask Shannon Dawson how much he just copies other playbooks, particularly Cam Ward's, Damian Martinez's, and Sam Brown. And he did say, of course he does. He studies what those guys were good at, and he will steal those plays and implement them into the Canes offense. I hope that's the case. I hope he does that. I hope we see whatever it is that Cam Ward did really well implemented into this offense and not just what he's run the last 2 years.
I don't think I don't think he should be stealing anything from anybody. I would hope that his offense is could be set up in a way, and it's malleable in a way that he could actually put his players in the best positions to make plays within his own system. Because what ends up happening is, when you start stealing things from different offenses, and it isn't the same sort of system that you run, or that you've established, or as your base foundation, then it becomes a sort of a sideshow. It's a one-off thing. It's a trick play. It's not really part of your system, and it's not something that you go to in a variable way, where you could give the same play at different looks and give your guys opportunities to make plays by disguising things and moving things around. Now it just becomes sort of a one-trick pony.
Well, I hope whatever it is, he puts his guys, like you said, in the best position to succeed. I think he will. I think there's too many weapons on this team for it to fail, Carlos.
What he
Just
needs to do is just use the Cuban phrase, the only way to describe it, que se ponga las pilas, and that's it.
well, we appreciate you tuning in. Carlos, where can people follow you on Twitter, your podcast, buy t-shirts from you? Are you still doing that? Are you still putting Joanna to work to make t-shirts for you?
I mean, she's been busy doing her own stuff with the shirts and stuff, so haven't wanted to bother her. But if people want shirts, they can always hit me up. She customizes shirts, so if you want to follow her at on Twitter, it's at Love and Light Couture, all one word. If you don't know how to spell couture, then that's your problem. Get hooked on phonics. Um, at MIA Ledo on Twitter. I don't tweet that often, but now that the season's upon us, I'm doing it a little bit more, being a little bit more active. Been a little busy just enjoying the summer, but you can always find me here with Manny, and I will be a little bit more active on the podcast. And I am contemplating doing some different stuff on YouTube with the YouTube channel, just doing some separate things aside from the podcast, making that its own entity. So if you guys have any ideas or things you'd like to see, hit me up.
All right, sounds good. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. If you are not already subscribed to our YouTube page, please do that as well. We will have more wide right in the weeks ahead. We're getting closer to the season, guys. We're only 3 weeks away, and my favorite team, the Seminoles, start the season August 24th, Carlos. That's Saturday
Yeah.
before
Oh,
Miami. I'll be watching. I won't be in Dublin with them for the Georgia Tech game, but I will be watching from my couch and writing about them for the Athletic.
so yeah, get a Uranus ready and those balls ready to be dropped in mouths.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to Wide Right. We'll be back soon. Again, please, please, please make sure you give Carlos Leather a follow on Twitter. He needs some more people
And
following.
please subscribe to Manny, to the to the Athletic. I know there's not is there a deal going on right now or no?
Usually it's after you resubscribe. So it's I'm waiting. They're waiting for you to
Yeah.
sign up again, and then they're gonna do it right
I
after.
think I'm due for renewal soon. So guys, hang on a little bit and you'll get a great deal.
See you guys next week.